2.
Sweet! Hi, welcome to JD Sports. I'm Jarrett and D. That's Dwight Garfield. We're talking about the NFL. We're going to dive right into it. Last week, biggest games, I would say Green Bay and Denver. Obviously, the undefeateds. Aaron Rodgers, I never expected.
Slacking.
I don't think there was ever. I mean, maybe if he got to that point where Manning is in his career, where we feel like he's kind of losing his skills a little bit, I might feel that Aaron Rodgers may be able to throw for under 100 yards. But right now, in a season that maybe he has the potential to, he was at least in the MVP talk, maybe not as of late because they've had trouble scoring points on offense, but
they've been struggling.
That could have been Jordy Nelson, and you talked about that before the season a little bit, and I give you credit because now it could be showing a little bit. But anyways, for him to ever throw, even without Jordy Nelson, throw under 100 yards, I don't think I would have ever said in this season I would have seen that. So even against, again, a really good Denver defense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you touched based on it. I would never, even with or without a healthy Jordy Nelson, I would still never say no. There's no way Aaron Rodgers can have under 100 passing yards. But in saying that, I did pick Denver, and this is the reason why I picked Denver is because I felt that their defense was going to do enough to contain Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, I didn't think it was going to be to contain him below 100 yards. That's unthinkable. Payton threw for over 300 yards, but he also did get in the end zone.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it was more so a story of what the defense was able to do to Aaron Rodgers, and they exposed the fact that Aaron, one, doesn't have as much help as we think he does.
Yes. And
Green Bay, granted, they don't allow a lot of points. They also allow a lot of yards in saying that.
Well, they gave up. I mean, they had a hard time stopping the run in the red zone, as you said, because they ended up giving up a good amount of points, even without Peyton throwing any touchdowns. So he had 340 yards. If you would have said that a quarterback had 340 yards like him, I definitely don't think I would have said Peyton Manning.
Especially having 340 yards without a touchdown, when does that happen?
Yeah,
that's just an anomaly. It's weird.
It's different, but he found a little bit of a rhythm. During the pistol, I didn't want to write him off, and I've been doing my best not to write him off over the last couple of weeks. But I still feel like I've been talking about how he was slipping. I was impressed with this, and moving forward, I really think that if he can find that rhythm and keep that rhythm, and they can keep pounding the ball the way they do on offense, and obviously the way that defense plays. Listen. Even like we said, without Jordy Nelson, if you shut down the Packers for under 100 yards passing in any game, you're doing something right.
Right, you can say that for any team, really.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in today's NFL, absolutely. But part of that, I think, was you got to get the run game going. Eddie Lacy was supposed to be like the big back, and over the last couple of years, he's played really well. This year, it doesn't seem like it's clicking for him. Starks has kind of had it clicking, but at the end of the day, neither of them had it clicking on Sunday night. I'll be honest, I kind of had to watch the highlights, read the stats, and kind of follow along on Twitter because I was watching baseball. I was watching the World Series. But
understandable.
It's unbelievable to see how it unfolds.
It just exposed the fact that, again, we talked about it before, is that Aaron Rodgers doesn't have this help. He doesn't have a running game to speak of, and his defense is, suspect. So, I mean, he finally faced a team that, overall, they have weapons. They have a complete defense. And, granted, their offense has been struggling. They still, at the end of the day, have a Peyton Manning who has at least receivers to throw to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. Speaking about another team that has everything, how about Cincinnati? I mean, Cincinnati going into Pittsburgh.
It's very impressive.
Listen, I said it to you. The big bad, Cincinnati feels like Pittsburgh and the Ravens are sort of like, hey, like those are the teams that they kind of strive to be because they're in their class. They want to be those as good as those franchises are consistently. To beat both of them as, 2 division games on the road this year in the fashions that they did because it was late in games. And they did this one on offense and defense. Granted, Big Ben looked a little rusty.
It was impressive to go into Pittsburgh like that.
Yeah,
a big divisional game.
Listen, I didn't.
A team that swept you last year.
Yeah, the numbers of, and I know it's a different NFL over the last even 3 or 4 years than it was 8 years ago, but the numbers over the last 8 or 9 years from Cincinnati going into Pittsburgh are staggering. They don't score a lot of points at all. I think they've only scored over 20 like twice in the last 8 years, which is incredible. I'm not 100% sure on that stat, but it's like it's a low number, and that's kind of odd to think, especially with the teams that they've had overall. Now they had 2 or 3 down years in those years, but for them to go in there and not get even 20 points and still get a W, I mean, with Big Ben,
it's very impressive.
Unfortunately, Bell going down, but Williams, he's played well as a backup.
D'Angelo has played fantastic.
He's not going to be what Bell was to you.
No, not at all. But I mean,
it's heartbreaking to see. It's unfortunate, but
Bell
you still have Brown on the outside. Keep going.
They're kind of used to not having. They're accustomed to not having.
Yeah.
And
they were playing well.
Right, and D'Angelo has been doing very well for a backup running back that's playing like he is a starter.
Yeah.
The first drive with the Steelers, I was actually very impressed with Big Ben. He marched down that field, and I was like, okay, he's just going back to he's going back to what he did the first 2 weeks, and then lo and behold, that was the only drive that we were able to really say that. We're to a point, we touched about it like a week or two ago, where we said we're to a point we need to stop questioning Cincinnati. As far as the postseason, we just need to wait and see what happens when they get there. Mm-hmm. Because right now they're doing phenomenal things, and they're going to Pittsburgh. Granted, Big Ben hasn't played in a couple weeks, but at the end of the day, Cincinnati, they're just rolling, man.
No, I completely agree. Something I want to give credit to Cincinnati to. You said about how Big Ben went right down the field in the beginning of the game. Mm. Since then, they changed kind of their coverage a little bit. Since 2008, the Bengals they've drafted, I think it was 4 cornerbacks in the first or second rounds. They drafted them early. Anyways, right. And that's because back in, then the Ravens were kind of building a receiving core. Right. And as of late, even the last 2 years, they've drafted, the Bengals have drafted a couple corners because you look at, even the Steelers receiving cores. And they came up big late because Big Ben, like you said in the first drive, they went right down the field. They changed their coverage. They have all those cornerbacks. That's why they do that. I was impressed with Dalton overall late. And, Big Ben, like I said, I felt like it was a little rusty, but I want to give a little credit to the Bengals defense because we don't do that a whole lot.
No,
plus with Pac-Man Jones, he is what he is, but he plays well. He had a great play, and he's played well overall this season. So
absolutely, and when he's on, he's really on.
Absolutely. Moving on, Dallas. I want to bring this game up for a couple of reasons.
You just want to break my soul.
No, because I want to point out the fact, and it's one of the first things we talked about when I saw you today. I don't like how the situation was handled with the field goal and the 12 men on the field. The NFL cannot let those things happen. That's just inexcusable.
It's not acceptable.
There should have been a penalty for one of 2 reasons. The ACC suspended refs for making calls as bad as that. Why can't the NFL go out there and do something like that? That's a whole different subject for a whole different day. So absolutely. I do want to say that things like that it's frustrating to watch, but
it just makes you question the NFL. That's all it makes you do. It makes you question their motives because they pick and choose. We touched base on that earlier when we were talking about it. They seem to pick and choose. Like if they blow a spot here, then they feel like they need to make it up for you here. So it is completely unacceptable because there's games where they would throw a flag in that situation. Okay, you don't have any time. You can't call back-to-back timeouts. Excuse me. Right. So normally, what's that? It's a flag. It's like on personal contact or whatever the heck the actual call is. You throw a flag. And then next thing you know, it's first down and goal for Dallas. But that's a completely different situation.
But the only reason they were calling the timeout is because they had 12 men on the field.
Right, so either way, it's a flag. But you don't call either or, so it's like,
right.
What are you doing?
They got to take their man off the field, and then Dallas still had to... It made no sense.
It's another situation. And you know what? I'm going to bring it up real quick just because people always like to say, oh, Jerry Jones likes to pay the refs. Yeah, just like he paid the refs in the Green Bay game last year and completely paid the refs this week, huh? Right, yeah.
So that was frustrating. I don't like seeing that. I feel like that took away something from Dallas. I don't know if Dallas scores a touchdown because they didn't score another touchdown. They didn't score a touchdown the whole game. Right. So I don't know if they get it in or not.
It's more so just a principle
of that moment.
Right,
and
absolutely.
Of what that game happened. A couple plays before that was the McFadden catch, no catch, fumble, no fumble.
Yeah, and that's unacceptable as well.
I think it was a catch and fumble, but at the same time, what's a catch and what's not a catch nowadays? Who knows?
In 2015, I have no idea.
In the NFL,
it's a week-by-week, game-by-game basis.
The head of the NFL was on the NFL Network. The head of NFL officials when the NFL was on the NFL Network defending the McFadden no catch, but you could literally put up some other plays right next to it.
Yep.
That they called catches, and he's defending. It's just weird. I don't get it.
The NFL, I don't know what
it's odd.
I don't know what's the deal with officiating, but as a whole, they need to get it together. Obviously, we can complain about the officiating all day, every day. It's just the way it is, and it will continue to be that way. But if you can't even establish what a catch is and isn't, such a basic aspect of football, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
Especially when it's been such a big problem in the past couple of years.
Yeah. Outside of that, a couple things I want to get to. Russell Wilson, he looks like he's doing it absolutely by himself. Outside of the Greg Hardy interception, which was phenomenal, he stayed away from Hardy for the most part. He was running the opposite way. I think the coaching staff, the offensive coordinators and everything, they did a good job of keeping him outside of Hardy. I think they got to figure out how to move the ball a little more. I don't understand.
Definitely, yeah.
What is it beast mode? I'm not sure what's going on with their offense. It's frustrating to watch though because Russell Wilson looks like he's out there by himself doing it. And at the end of the day, that's not going to do it because the defense. This is the third time they haven't given up a touchdown this year. Well, they only have four.
Impressive.
They only have 4 wins though. You're not going to be able to do that the whole entire season. I understand. I agree with you. It is extremely expressive, especially how hard we've been on them. They've only given up. In 3 games they haven't given up a touchdown. Now the games that they've given up touchdowns, they've gotten absolutely obliterated in their secondary.
Right. But if defense is starting to step up more and more, we questioned their defense earlier on, but now in the past couple weeks,
they're going to have a lot of home games coming up too. Sorry.
So that definitely helps because we all know how much of a threat they are at home.
Yes.
But in the past couple weeks, as I was saying, the defense has just gotten better and better. But the problem is their offense isn't putting up points. And you're right. It does look like Russell's out there by himself. I don't know if it's beast mode. I mean,
I don't think it is him either because their offensive line isn't all that good. But
I think it's the offensive line. I also think Russell really doesn't have a weapon. He has Jimmy Graham out there, but they're not doing a whole lot with him. What else does he have out there? And Marshawn Lynch isn't putting up 100, 150 a game like he was.
I love Marshawn Lynch, and I don't mean this against him, but the reason they felt like they can get rid of some offensive linemen is because they felt like he can take a hit 2 or 3 yards in the backfield and still get 3 or 4 yards on a play.
Right.
That was the whole point. His numbers were supposed to fall, but he's not still like he's only getting a yard or 2, and that's where things come into issue. That's why it looks like Russell Wilson's out there by himself. Granted, I mean, Greg Hardy and the rest of that defensive line is not easy to get by. So it's not like we're judging them against a lot of really good defensive lines over this season, and their offensive line is weaker. But at the same time, yeah, it's hard to win games.
It's still not looking good.
If you are only winning games by a couple of points, if you're not scoring 20 points and your defense isn't giving up a touchdown in a whole game, I mean it's hard. That's not. I can't see them being a playoff team right now, and that's frustrating because I think Russell Wilson is. I think he's completely underrated. He's playing out of his mind, and it's just like it's hard. It's hard to watch.
I don't think he's getting enough credit.
I'm not even saying close to getting enough credit right now.
I mean, the record doesn't show. They're one of those teams, I think, as long as they can continue to get by and potentially get into the playoffs, that's where I feel like they're going to be a big threat.
Well, like I always say.
But the problem is getting there.
Like I always say, is you've got to get to the November, and they win the games from November to the end.
Right.
And I keep saying I'm not worried about them, but the more I'm watching it, I took away, like I said, Russell Wilson's out there doing it by himself.
Right.
Unless they can figure it out on offense sometime in November, I don't see them again going into Lambeau, because now you're going to have to probably go into Lambeau if you're you're definitely not hosting them. I mean, with the amount of losses you have, unless you don't lose another game the rest of the season, they rattle off 4 more obviously. But it's just there's not a whole lot of time left in the season when it's coming down to if you really start thinking about it that way. So you're going to have to go into Lambeau, and if I don't think they have a guy that can go and just torch the Green Bay defense, and they did last year. You know what I mean? They had guys who were making plays for them. I don't see those guys being able to make those. They're not making those plays right now, obviously.
No, not at all. And as you said, it kind of goes back to the offensive line. I think that's just
right. That's why it looks like Russell Wilson's out there by himself. He's not having the time to let Doug
so much more worse than
He's not having the time to let those guys who have the skills to do it. Moving on. Well, do you want to talk about Dallas? Actually, do you have anything to say about them before we move on? Because I want you. I mean, if you do, that's. You gotta get. Hold on. You gotta get the ball towards Desmore, right? He can't be out there. In the first half, they threw to him once.
I don't know if that's a product of Dez still being, a little rusty, or if it's also a combination with Castle. I think it's a little bit of both.
There was a couple plays where Dez looked like he was open and Castle just didn't get it to him.
And, a lot of Cowboys fans are saying, or a lot of people are saying, well, you better off with Brandon Whedon. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't agree with that either. I don't think one's better than the other, though.
Not necessarily, but if you ask me to pick one, I'm going with Castle just because he can get that deep threat out there occasionally. And now they're talking about, again, should they go back to Whedon? I don't necessarily feel that way. At this rate, just stick to what is already there.
Here's how I feel about it.
It's not going to get any better going back to Brandon Whedon.
Here's how I feel about it. I don't think one's better than the other. So you already made the switch once. There's no point to keep changing the flow, keep changing the cadence, keep changing the quarterback. It's just the way the ball thrown. You just you know what I mean? The way he progresses, all of it. If you change quarterback, that's what you're going to get. You want some kind of consistency. They didn't look terrible coming into the Seahawks game. And to be honest with you, Seahawks are a good defense. We talk about that all the time. Yeah. Their offensive line, woo, they were blocking, boy. Yeah. They look good. They look good, but they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. And at the end of the day, that's been their issue with Matt Castle and Brandon White. So
offensively, I feel like at this point we just need to stick with Castle. Why go back to something that is as bad, if not worse, by going back to Brandon Whedon? No, we left Brandon Whedon because we felt like he could have opened the field.
Yep.
We go to Matt Castle. He does open up a little better. Granted, he's another one to put up over 100 yards in a game, which is discussing when you have a Jason Witten, you have that offensive line to protect.
Dez Bryant.
You have Dez Bryant, and the funny thing is
he's
that
got to throw his direction a little more.
Right, and a lot of people were getting on Dallas's offensive line. Yo, why don't you run the ball more? Why don't you run the ball more? I feel like McFadden's doing fantastic right now. The problem is that we've been getting to a situation where we run it first, second down, and now we're at third down and it's like 6, and it's like, okay, do we throw it? Do we pass it? We're getting into this pattern of run, and the defense is being able to stop it. That's the thing. But if you look at our actual stats, we actually run the ball very well.
Yeah.
So it's not a question of whether or not we can run it. It's a matter of we run so well that the defense eventually say, well, that's all they're going to do because we can't pass.
They've been getting McFadden in open space, screen passes, wheel routes, stuff like that. I like what they've been doing with him. He's been getting the yards like you said,
right?
But they're not getting to the end zone. I don't know what's clicking there, and that I just think that's a lack of if they're inside the 10, they're inside the 5. Chances are they're going back and handing it off. They're not going to put it in their quarterback's hand. And if you're one-dimensional, it's hard to win, especially when the field is cut that low.
Right. And McFadden's been doing his thing, and obviously he's going to be the man moving forward because we just cut Julius Randle today as this recording. So, obviously, moving forward, we're going to keep going with McFadden. McFadden's the man now.
That's an odd situation. We'll see about him going forward if anybody picks him up, if there's any discipline from the NFL for everything that's been going on with his life. I'm not really sure about it.
It's still kind of up in the air as of this recording, what is going on with Randall. We've heard a lot of things. We're starting to think maybe it's something up here with the man. Don't really know. I don't want to speculate, but good luck to him.
Yeah, I hope things
hopefully
turn around at least.
Hopefully he at least gets his personal life together.
Yeah,
Forget the football thing.
Absolutely.
Get your life together first, bro. And I hope, because he is a talent, I hope he does go somewhere and does something with himself.
Yeah, he had it, moving on. The Titans today, as of this recording, also fired their head coach, Ken Hhisenhunt. Now, to their credit, his record is horrible over the last couple of years, and his record the last 3 years with Arizona wasn't any good. Mm-hmm. And really, outside of benching Matt Leinart for Kurt Warner, yes, thank you, for Kurt Warner, he really hasn't made any huge impact on teams.
No.
My thing is, I have a lot to say. So tell me first.
My thing is real simple, is that Tennessee doesn't have any room to just get rid of a coach like that. I'm not saying he's like Bill Parcells or he's some phenomenal coach, but I'm saying Tennessee, you're not in a position to just be like, coach, it's time for you to leave in the middle of the season. Why don't you just do this? Why don't you do this before the season started? Because you know what the talent you had. That's the problem. Tennessee doesn't have a talent. They have a rookie quarterback. See what happens. Mariota has been playing horribly. He hasn't been playing terrific either, but he's not playing so bad that it's like, okay, fire the coach. No, you don't have any weapons around Mariota. Your defense is okay. It's not great. It's not terrible either. But I'm of the mindset, okay, he was 3 of 20, they said, the past couple of years? Okay. Yeah, but, okay, so then fire him before the season. Don't do it in the middle of the season at this point. What is the reason behind it? My man was in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. We're going to forget about that.
In the press conference, their owner, the majority owner is a woman. She said that, her VP or whatever, he was the one who did the press conference. He said that she's been pondering this. Has been a process for a couple of weeks, and that she's been talking to Ken Hhisenhunt and others, and there was a process and all that. Now, Ken Hhisenhunt claims that he was just called into an office and told that he was relieved of his duties today, and there was no warning and there was no talk of, hey, what can we change? I'm with you. Why you just drafted a quarterback? He actually has done pretty well with quarterbacks overall throughout his career. I mean, not well.
Wasn't he a quarterback? I'm pretty sure he was a quarterback.
But he coached Ben Roethlisberger, and he coached all those backups out there, and then Matt Leinart in the Warner thing. But listen, even further, Zach Mettenberger was his quarterback last year, and they actually won a couple of games. And he coaches some quarterbacks out. You have Mariota, who has a talent, who actually looked pretty good overall. Now, granted, it was against the Bucs in the first game, and he blew up in that game. But since then, he hasn't looked terrible, and he's been injured.
Not enough to warrant firing a coach over.
Right, and like you said, if you're going to fire a coach, then do that before you draft the quarterback. Because now, all you did was put him in a position to say, oh yes, I want Mariota, and then take it away from him 5 or 7 weeks in or 8 weeks in or whatever it is. And now you're going to put another coach in who didn't get to handpick that number 2 pick overall. You're handcuffing yourself. But I'm not the one to try to pull back the curtain and be, this guy. But I look at them as the owners of the Cubs in that Rookie of the Year movie. where they're just trying to get the team to move, and they end up having a season and they turn around. They are $25 million under the cap. And in the NFL, you cannot compete. Wow. You're not going to compete with New England. You're not going to compete with Dallas. You're not going to compete with Seattle. You're not going to compete with Philadelphia, who's not even playing all that well. No. You're not going to compete with Jacksonville. I think has $27 million under the cap. You're not going to compete with anybody unless you're going to hit the cap room. Unless you're paying your players, no one's going to go to play with I talked about how Ken Hhisenhunt had a bad record and how even the last couple of years he had a bad record in Arizona. But overall. Just $25 million under the cap.
That's too much money. That's way too much money. What are you doing with it?
You're not putting him in a position. You're not putting him in a position to win. What talent is he? Of course he only has 5 wins over the last 40 weeks or whatever it was.
And every time you start to pay like a Chris Johnson some money or Albert Haynesworth,
exactly, way too late.
Right, and you might be talking about some personality issues, but what I'm saying is when they do start to pay somebody, eventually they just get rid of them shortly thereafter for whatever reason.
Right.
Maybe they don't work out for whatever reason. But
I'm not one to like I said,
get some talent.
As I said, pull back the curtain, and I'm not one to say let's fire people and it's this person's that person's fault. But they have the same GM that got rid of Jeff Fisher, which is arguably the worst move in their franchise's history. It's only a short franchise, and that's why I can say that it's arguably the worst move in their franchise's history that they got rid of their best coach, and he was they fell upon him. He was the coach of the team that they bought. You know what I mean? They didn't even bring him in. So, to me, it looks like their football knowledge at the top, it just isn't there.
They have no idea what's going on.
And that's not good. You're not going to compete, and they're going to be a team that is going to be like the Rams or like San Diego or like these other teams that are all getting talked about moving, because eventually you can only lose in one city for so long before that city says you got to be out of there. When you're not spending the money, though, you're not going to win. I mean, it's a simple fix. Either you got to get somebody in there to buy that team, or you got to you have to. There's no way you can't tell me an NFL team's not making $25 million somewhere that they can't spend. There's no way you can't tell me that.
I can't. I have nothing for you.
I just you own an NFL team. You have $25 million somewhere, and if you don't have $25 million somewhere, you shouldn't be owning the NFL team. That's the point of owning an NFL team.
All right, absolutely.
So I don't know. It just I'm not blaming this on the majority owner because I don't know her situation. I'm not even behind the curtain. All I'm saying is I'm just looking at the numbers, and from afar, this looks bad, like really bad, and you have to figure out how to fix that, or else you're just going to do this for the next 10 years, and you're going to be out of Tennessee.
Absolutely. Hey, shout out to Ken Hhisenhunt. I mean, he got out of a horrible situation, and we both know that he's going to get hired somewhere very quickly.
At least as a quarterback or a coordinator.
Absolutely. I don't think he's going to be a head coach immediately.
For a while, but I think he eventually can be again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He'll get that opportunity, but he will be a coordinator.
He took a team to a Super Bowl, and whether or not his record over the last 10 years combined hasn't been all that great, it says something that he took a team to. He's been there. He's done it. Moving on. Last big news of the day, Kaepernick on his 28th birthday, or 27th birthday, I forget, getting sat for Blaine Gabbert, who, speaking of over the last 10 years, has the lowest winning percentage with quarterbacks that have started over 25 games or more. That's who Kaepernick got benched for. He has the lowest winning percentage of quarterbacks over the last 10 years that have started 25 games or more.
On your birthday. Happy birthday. You know what? No, that is a good thing. Happy birthday, Colin. Because you know what? It's about time you're going to get out of that situation, bro. Because you know what? They're done. They were done when they got rid of coach. They were done when they got rid of all these players.
Here's my thing.
Bro, it's time to move on. Do I agree with San Francisco? Absolutely not. Because I feel like Colin is in a situation where, I was saying before, where we have short-term memory of how good he was just in recent memory. This isn't 5 years ago. This isn't past 3 or 4 years. He was really good. He went to a Super Bowl, then he went to an AFC Championship game. Let's not act like all of a sudden he doesn't have talent. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if it's the coach, the scheme, whether he doesn't have weapons. Whatever the hell the story is,
I think he has weapons.
He has the talent to do some work, and you know what? He's going to be in a situation where I said before, I felt like he was going to be done in San Francisco after this year. So you know what, bro? Just sit it out, rest up, get your mind together, get the hell out of Dodge. Because San Francisco is in the gutter right now.
The only thing I would say to that is you have to do something. Kaepernick wasn't playing well. I'm not saying Blaine Gabbert's the answer because they're going to still play pretty bad. They're not going to win a whole lot of games.
Right. They're just doing a towel.
Sometimes you get to the point where you just feel like you have to do something. You have to change something up. Mm-hmm. You're not going to fire the coach at the moment because you just fired your last coach, even though that was a horrible decision and we both agree that was a horrible decision.
Right.
Kaepernick was in a bad spot coming into the season. He came into the season with an organization that did not back him. The only person in the organization that backed him was the coach, who they fired. So you knew it wasn't going to last long anyways for Kaepernick because he's done at the end of this year anyways with his contract. So it's just one of those situations where they felt like they had to do something. They don't support him. They don't back him. They want to move on. They're just going to, like you said, throw in the towel.
Just cutting their losses, man.
Try to figure out what they're going to do in the future. I don't know. This coach obviously isn't the coach of the future. I'm not even saying he's a bad coach, but he wasn't put in the best position either.
No.
They just, as a whole, sometimes you just have to hit the restart button. You were so close.
They hit it hard, though. That's the problem.
You did something right, exactly.
Hard reset.
Right, exactly. But you can't hit the reset button halfway. I don't believe in. I don't believe in cutting a coach. I don't believe in just cutting the coach and promoting the guy behind him. And that, like, what was the point in cutting the coach then? He does it better. There is no question that the coach that you promoted a coach that was hired by the coach that you fired, and there is no question that the coach that you fired is a better coach than the guy that you promoted.
Right.
If you're not going to go in a whole different direction, then why would you cut ties with one guy who runs the system better? I just don't. It just baffles
And then again, we're back in a situation where you should have made these decisions before the season started.
Well, yeah. Again, you're right. I don't know. I just want to circle about it.
It's a mess.
Anyways, I lied about the last big news of the day because moving on, only trade of note: Vernon Davis going to Denver for a couple of picks. I know you're not overexcited about it. Peyton Manning threw for 340. He already has a really good receiving core. They found a run game. You add a tight end, which is the only thing that they're missing that they had the last couple of years. Okay. I think
I know I am the only person that has been shaking my head and shrugging about it because I get it. Vernon Davis can potentially go back to the weapon that he was in San Francisco. I get it that he could potentially be that security blanket for Peyton Manning. I get it, but Vernon Davis does not necessarily stop Peyton Manning from throwing interceptions. It doesn't stop Peyton Manning from throwing completions to weapons he already has. I get it. Vernon Davis is a bonus, but he hasn't done anything recently that makes me go, oh my God, now all of a sudden, because people are saying, oh, now they are the Super Bowl threat. What makes Vernon Davis all of a sudden that guy that makes Denver go over the hump? Why wasn't Denver a threat prior to getting this trade is my question, because Vernon Davis doesn't do it for me. To me, he's a weapon, I get it, and he will only help the situation, but he's not going to solve Peyton Manning's problems, in my opinion.
Two things I'm going to say to you, and I'm not disagreeing with you, because Vernon Davis, here's one of them. Vernon Davis and Peyton Manning, their skills aren't as good as they were 3 or 4 years ago. Right. Or even 2 years ago, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But the other thing I would come back with, just to play devil's advocate, Julius Thomas. Right. How good was he last year?
He was fantastic with Peyton.
If Peyton and Vernon Davis can kind of be like, hey, we're the old guys that everyone's writing off. We're going to do this. We're already 7-0, right? 7-0? We're already 7-0. Like, you know what I mean? So they're already like, hey, let's get this done. Like, we're halfway through it. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I think that it can open up the offense a little more. I don't know if it does, and like you said, Peyton has been throwing a couple more interceptions. He's not as accurate as before. This isn't going to make him any more accurate. Right. It just adds another target that he had. All it does. But he had a really viable target there before, and he was putting up record numbers, and that's the only thing that's different. Their offensive line is playing really well. They were trying to trade for an offensive lineman. They were trying to trade for Joe Thomas to make their offensive line even better, and they're already playing well. But do you know what I'm saying? Like I'm just on the flip end.
I get it.
On the flip end, I think there's a possibility it opens up. That's all I'm saying.
It'll definitely open up some. Without question, it'll open up the offense a lot more than it has been this season. But as I said, I just don't think that it's enough to change Peyton's playing habits this year, which have been pretty mediocre at best.
Absolutely. This is the portion of the show where we break down 3 games. We're going to jump right into it. A 1 o'clock game is Green Bay going to Carolina. Now, Carolina's defense is playing so well. They're playing really well over the entire season. Last game was in a rainstorm. It's in Carolina.
That game means absolutely nothing to me.
Cam's just getting it done, though they kind of almost blew a lead at the end. But you said it doesn't mean anything to you. I'm kind of in the air about it
because of the weather.
Andrew Luck with broken ribs.
That's all fine and dandy, but because of the situation, because of the weather, I feel like you can't judge either team. But if I erase the fact that I won't judge either team on that one game, obviously Carolina's been playing spectacularly. Yes. I get it, and they begin to win. They've been getting the wins, and we, as I said before, we keep repeating ourselves with this team. Last week I said that Green Bay was either going to lose to Denver or Carolina or both. And last week I went with Denver and that dominant defense, and that's exactly what happened. They contained Aaron Rodgers, and they did enough just to hold him and make the team as a whole look a little more suspect than what their record shows. Mm-hmm. And saying that, I'm going to defense again. I'm going Carolina in this game. Because, granted, I get it. We don't want to say, it's so odd to say, oh, well, Green Bay, they can't lose 2 in a row, but they're facing, the Panthers' defense isn't as good as Denver's, but it's also very good. And I think that in Carolina, they're going to do enough to maintain Aaron Rodgers again. I don't think they're going to hold him to under 100 yards. That's not going to happen. He will have over 100 yards. He might have 150. Whatever he's going to have, I don't care. But I think that defense will contain him. Cam Newton's just going to do what he always does and just get the win.
I'm saying this with my fingers crossed because Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. Okay, Aaron Rodgers pissed off is not somebody I want to play. But I look at Green Bay and I look at how they struggled against St. Louis. I look at how they struggled at points against San Diego, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I look at how they didn't play all that well, obviously, on offense last week. No. I look at Carolina's defense consistently, week in and week out, play well. And right. I'm going to go with that because Cam Newton is also getting it done. And Denver plays that rough you up, I'm in your face, and as I said before, in the rain it was so much more fun. Okay, I have to be honest, I just bought a new huge TV, and in the rain it looked so much more awesome to see Carolina's offensive line just pushing people around. They are so mean and they are so tough, and Cam Tolbert and Jonathan Stewart, I mean, they're playing tough nose, they're getting in people's faces, they're putting their heads down, they're running people over. Yeah. Cam's taking more shots than anybody else, but they have that tough nose attitude. Greg Olsen has taken 100% of snaps on offense this year for the Carolina Panthers.
That's unbelievable.
Oh my!
Doesn't make any sense.
Nobody else in football outside of an offensive lineman has done that. But he's the only tight end, wide receiver, running back to do that. I mean, so that's impressive.
Absolutely.
But
so you going Carolina?
I'm going with Carolina because Cam's just been getting it done. Like I said, Denver plays a similar style as Carolina does, running a little, and I think that Carolina plays it better than Denver does. Denver obviously opened it up a little bit, 340 in the passing game. No touchdowns, though. Carolina gets their touchdowns on the ground overall. I mean, a couple of passings from Cam Newton. But for the most part, they're that ground and pound, like we said. Green Bay's defense is a lot tougher and better than I think they looked, but the season's kind of going on. Maybe they're turning. Maybe it was a product of teams they were playing because Nick Foles, he threw for under, I think, 150 yards in the game he played Green Bay. So, I mean, things like that, odd stats like that maybe have been happening. They're not finding the run game as we talked about earlier with Green Bay. I'd like to see them be able to run the ball a little more. Carolina's defense isn't going to let them do that. No. And Carolina's secondary is a little better than people expected. Kirk Coleman, who I'm not a fan of because I'm an Eagles fan, had a couple of big plays on Monday Night Football, and that's odd. But
I just want to bring up one thing about Cam. I tweeted about it on our official Twitter, at _JD Sports. Yeah. I tweeted that I'm not liking Cam doing these runs where he's doing these head-on collisions. He needs to learn to either slide or, I don't know, he needs to just get down. I don't want to see him chucking people like he's a running back because he's either going to get concussed or he's going to get some type of injury. And then what are we talking about Carolina? We're talking about, they got a defense. Yeah. No, he needs to stop taking those hits, stop taking those blows, Cam, because it's not good for you.
I'm a huge Cam fan, so I hold my breath.
He's not a running back.
Shots. I hate watching it, but he's getting it done, and I just fingers crossed.
Great.
Like
he's
I said,
getting it done. But
I agree. I hate it. I scream.
Don't take a head-on collision.
I feel like I yell at it. I don't actually.
There was one play in last week's game where his head literally
I know. I watched it. He bounced off the other guy's helmet.
And I was like,
Cam put his head down,
but he got up.
Yeah, he walked right up. He did the. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did his whole first down thing, but bro, you gonna keep doing that? Eventually, you're not gonna get up. You're gonna get hurt out there.
I'm 100% with you.
Stop.
Speaking of Cam, one last quick note: Tom Brady is my personal MVP because at 38, he's having the best season of his career. But MVP is most valuable player. It's not a stat. And take Cam Newton off his team, and what did you just say happens? We talk about how they have a good defense. It's most valuable player to your team.
I might put him number 3
behind.
Andy Dalton.
Okay, you know what? That's open for discussion.
Rodgers might be 3A,
The only
but
reason
I will say Andy Dalton is one of them.
Oh, see, the only reason I'm going to put Rodgers, he's plummeting a little bit because their offense isn't clicking as well. He's out there a lot by himself, and I understand.
Definitely.
The fact that they only have one loss is super impressive. He's still in the conversation, but I'm with you. Dalton's a little above him. I put Cam there just because...
Cam's number 3 for me.
I'm not saying if you take Dalton off their team, they're, you know what I mean, they're any better than Carolina is if you take Cam off his team, but it just looks like Cam's carrying them more than Dalton is. That's my argument, but hey, we both have Brady as number 1, so it doesn't matter who's number 2.
If you're in that conversation, that says a lot about you. If we're talking about taking Aaron Rodgers out, so if I can say I'm taking Aaron Rodgers out and you're going in, that says something for you.
What did I say about number 2?
I don't know what you say about number 2.
They're not a winner, and 3 nobody remembers that. Denver going to Indianapolis in the 4 o'clock time slot. It's Peyton, obviously going back to Indianapolis. He's been there a couple times already. I think he lost 1-1, right?
I believe so, yeah.
So, it's, but it's always fun to talk about. Luck brought his team back there at the end of the game. Like you said, it was in the rain, so you don't really count the whole thing overall.
It means absolutely nothing to me.
Right, but I still think that he looked better with the broken ribs. That's scary and it's unfortunate, and I hope it's not, necessarily true, but I think it is. I picked Denver. I think I want to see how they look with Vernon Davis, but more overall, I like what they look like last week, and I like what their defense is obviously doing, and the way that the Colts haven't been able to move the ball, even though it was in the rain last week, they weren't moving the ball that well before that.
Right.
And Denver's defense, as good as it is, Peyton's playing the way Peyton is. They're undefeated. I have a hard time going against them. And Indianapolis, even with the loss, would still probably be the best team in that division.
I'm with you. I'm going with Denver as well just because of everything you already said. Denver's defense has played phenomenal.
Yep.
Indianapolis has been very spotty. Even if I take that one game out of the equation against Carolina, they still have been spotty. I think they're going to play much better than they did against Carolina because of the conditions. But overall, do I think it's going to be close? Not necessarily. I think Denver's defense is going to completely show up Andrew Luck's offense at this point.
I agree.
And Indianapolis defense isn't anything to write home about, so I'm going with Denver pretty much by default.
I like watching Peyton, though, coming back. I like seeing those kind of sentimental moments. And Andrew Luck, he always feels like he has a chip on his shoulder. You know what? Last year was in Denver, so I think he's only been to Indianapolis once now that I recollect that. But either way, Andrew Luck kind of takes this as one of those, and Andrew Luck beat him in the playoffs. He takes this game a little more serious than usual because he's Peyton Manning's predecessor. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. But I'm still going to take Peyton Manning in this one.
Andrew Luck's going to want to put up the type of numbers. He's going to want to have the type of game, but unfortunately, because of everything else around him, he's not going to be able to do it.
I agree. Now, the last game we're going to highlight, everybody knows you're a Cowboys fan. I'm an Eagles fan.
Yeah.
So, Dwight.
You want to start off?
Well,
you can start off for a change. I'm curious. Do you go with your fandom? Are you going to go with your fandom, or are you going to go with what you've been saying, is that Dallas is going to roll with the division when Romo comes back? What are you going with?
Is Romo coming back?
This week now.
Oh, there you go. So, what I'm really thinking is Bradford has played his best game. It was the last game that we saw the Eagles in, and it was against Carolina, who was the best defense they played. And his other best game was against the Jets, who also have a good defense, so they didn't look good at all against Oakland. Outside of that game, though, the Jets have really looked good. Outside of Oakland and Philadelphia, they even played well against New England. So it's really weird. It's hard to explain. But anyways, so saying that, I'm excited to see what the Eagles do moving forward. Also, hold on. Flip the script. If Bradford loses to Castle, then where am I supposed to go with that? And how it's just one of the it turns into a lost cause.
So
and it's not a lost cause.
You're more so going with your heart. You're more so going with your fandom a little bit.
No, I think that the Eagles are a better talented team overall, only because right now the Dallas Cowboys are having a hard time scoring touchdowns. I will say that the Cowboys defense shut the Eagles offense down the second week of the year. The Eagles have to figure that out and turn that around. But the Eagles defense, I think, will have a better hold on anything. The only thing I'm really scared of for the Eagles defense is Dez. He loves eating the heck out of them. We'll see. I'm picking the Eagles, and like you said, it might be because of fandom, but how I really feel is that I do think that the Eagles have the better team right now. They're playing better football, and it's only because Romo's out.
Absolutely. And you know what? I feel like I could go with Philadelphia, but because of who I am and because of what this show is,
you have to.
I'm not going with Philly. I mean, if you guys win, I understand it, but at the same time, I'm not going with them. I'm going with Dallas. Because of the fact that I don't trust Philadelphia whatsoever. Granted,
It's in Dallas.
It's in Dallas, which, historically Dallas hasn't been playing well in Jerry world. I get it. And I understand that you guys are going to want to get this revenge game. I also understand that, Dez he's getting an extra week to get his feet under, or maybe he bounces back compared to what he had against the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. My problem with Dallas is our quarterback situation, obviously, but I feel like our defense is good enough to
obviously running the ball well.
Right, absolutely. I feel like our defense is good enough to obviously hold a mediocre offense in Philadelphia. Granted, they've been looking better. They're not great. Let's just stop.
No, I don't think they're great either. But
no, they're not. They've been playing better. I get it. The defense, I feel like, is going to do enough. I also feel like our running game doesn't get enough credit. A lot of times they say, "Oh, well, why don't Dallas just run the ball more?" Like I said earlier. We're to a point where Dallas is running by default, and because we run so much and we do run well, is that defenses are able to shut that down because of the fact that we don't have a passing game whatsoever. We don't have a passing threat.
Right.
And they've been talking about, which quarterback is Dallas going with? To me, you go with Matt Castle. Regardless of what quarterback is back there, I'm going with Dallas by default. I get it. It's a revenge game. It's a big game for either team.
The Eagles have played well in Dallas over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
and
they won the last meeting in Dallas.
Yeah, absolutely. The last 2 meetings in Dallas, actually.
Right.
And on top, so that's Chip's only 2 games in Jerry World he has won. But on top of that, the Eagles are getting Nelson Aguilar back. I think he can be a deep threat. He hasn't been a deep threat when he was healthy. And the rest of the wide receivers also need to hold on to the ball. Another big thing to watch is Kiko Alonso's coming back. And with the way the Eagles defense is playing and how much skill he has, if he can stay healthy and they can rotate all those linebackers, which Hicks has stepped up a little more. Ryans is playing better than I really expected him to. And Kendricks is, he's playing like Kendricks. You can kind of rotate those guys, all 4 of them. That turns into a really scary thing for me. And like you said, with the way Dallas is playing, I think
not a whole lot going on.
Exactly, and I think if you're one-dimensional, the Eagles' defense is good enough to shut them down. That's why I'm picking the Eagles, and that's why I do truly feel like the Eagles are going to win. But I understand where you're coming from. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. It's definitely going to be fun.
It's always fun. It's Eagles Cowboys.
What I will say, as you touch based on it, if you guys do not pull this off, this as a whole, because I already said I'm going with my fandom. I accept that. I admit I'm cool with that. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going with my team. Period. The end. But if you guys truly don't win this game, this is going to say a whole lot about you. Dallas is only 1 game behind in the division standings at this point right now today.
Yep.
So technically, we are still in it.
Where the Eagles can actually almost take a lead, basically. I mean, or at least they can take the next step to holding on to where they're at in their division.
Honestly, there's no reason why Philly should have won this game because you guys have everything going for you at this point in comparison to Dallas. But
gotta catch footballs, gotta get first downs.
It's real simple. It sounds real simple. And we got to get in the end zone, which we haven't been doing. So it's going to be a heck of a matchup.
The next portion of this show, we run through our picks, our weekly picks last week. Where'd you go, Dwight?
Oh, man. Mediocre. 7-7.
Oh, you went 7-7. I went 10-4.
I was lucky to go that 7-7, man.
My overall record is 77-42, which is feeling pretty good. I don't know how.
Really good. I'm 71-48.
Hey, that's all right. You're not too far behind, but I think you got to make progress this week.
Right, you're pulling off a little bit.
All right, we're gonna start Thursday night game. Cleveland going to Cincinnati. Johnny Manziel getting the start, my boy.
Stop it, Cincinnati, Dan.
I'm going to pick Cincinnati as well. I don't like seeing Johnny Manziel getting his first opportunity of the season against the best team that they've played so far. It's so frustrating because you know what's going to happen? He's going to look silly, and then everyone's going to be like, "Oh, I'll give up on Johnny Manziel."
It doesn't matter. He's mediocre regardless. Cincinnati.
Okay, and I understand that. You might feel that way, but I don't understand how you can really assess that from the teams he's played. It's not fair to him, especially he's going to go up against Cincinnati now. It's definitely, they're going to get beat. Hopefully he plays well.
You know what's funny about you? You slurp certain quarterbacks and other quarterbacks you completely write off. It's so funny with you because the quarterbacks you really slurp, you slurp hard, and quarterbacks you hate hard. It's just funny to me. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you gotta have a strong opinion on these guys.
I feel you.
No, the reason here's how I feel about Johnny Manziel. I think he has the talent. I don't know if he's going to succeed in the NFL. Listen,
right. He has the talent.
The things he's fallen into off the field, even as he's gotten better, are it's kind of getting brushed under the rug. He had a run-in with the law and his girlfriend a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago.
It happens.
And it turns out he might not have been in the wrong. I'm not really sure. I didn't know the deal. I'm not there. The point is it was kind of brushed aside, but things the small things are happening on the side that are not getting talked about. I don't think he's fully that guy that you want off the field yet. But to be honest with you, he hasn't gotten the chance on the field for me to know what he can do on the field. I'm not ready to write him off. I think he has the skill, and I want to see what he can do. Because watching him, and I understand that college is a whole different game, but watching what he did in college, it was fun, it was impressive, and I think if he can move around, get down, get out of bounds, not take those big shots, he's a small frame. And it's impossible to say that you're not going to take big shots. Look at Andrew Luck. He's big. He's taking shots. There's no way around it. I understand that. Johnny Manziel, unless he can figure out a way to not get hurt, that small frame's always going to go against him. So I understand where you're with that, but I want to see what he can do. I want to see his skills. I'm rooting for him, and I think he's a good player. He's fun to watch.
Next.
Andy Dalton wins, though. Jacksonville going to New York. They're playing the Jets. I wanted to pick Jacksonville because they played a lot better as of late. Their offense is so good, but I don't know.
No.
Fitzpatrick isn't going to start, so I don't know who I want to take in this game. As of right now, as of this recording, I'm going to take Jacksonville because I don't know who the quarterback of the Jets is. If Fitzpatrick starts,
here you go with these what ifs.
I might go on record. Well, because it's, what am I supposed to do? I got to wait till Sunday to find out.
You know what you do? You're going to make a pick like I'm about to do. I'm going with the Jets because of their defense. As decent as Blake Bortles has been playing, they're not going to do that against the Jets at home in New York.
Well,
that's not going to happen. I'm making a decision, and I feel like you should make that type of decision. Just, no, forget, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. You know what the Jets defense is, and
I think you're wrong. I do think it matters what the quarterback is. If Blake Bortles is the better quarterback in this game, and the way the Jets have given up all those points they did to Oakland, I don't think they're going to give those kind of points up to Jacksonville, but Jacksonville's been putting points up. Jacksonville doesn't have much of a run game. It's all going through Bortles and basically Allen Robinson, honestly, on the offense end. He's getting to Julius Thomas, too, a little bit. But I'm just going with Jacksonville because I don't know who the Jets quarterback is. Listen, if the Jets start Fitzpatrick, I'll probably change my pick on Sunday. Next game that I think we're actually going to agree on, Washington going to New England.
Oh, well, this is going to take about 5 seconds, New England.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins and
Tom Brady? No.
Nothing.
No, I have nothing for
not
Washington.
Even close.
No, not even.
Does Brady get 45?
Potentially. Potentially this is a situation where Belichick's like, all right, sit down.
I'm going with New England as well. Moving on, St. Louis going to Minnesota. I find this as an interesting game because I talk about how good I think Minnesota is all the time, but they've struggled on offense. For 2 weeks in a row, there's been at least 2 quarters in the games they played. Now, Chicago's a little better, but they're still not all that great because they had a fire sale. They got rid of their best defensive player. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're playing, it's not like their defense is all that good, but yet Chicago still kind of held them at bay for at least 2 of those 4 quarters. I don't like seeing that out of Minnesota, but their defense is playing so well. And St. Louis, Nick Foles, the most of his yards, literally half of his yards came on a wide receiver screen pass last week. He had under 100 yards until that. He had 150 yards against Green Bay. So it's 2 games where he was under 150 yards. And one of those games literally came on one play. I have to go with Minnesota because of that.
I'm going Minnesota as well just because of the fact that I believe in their defense more so than I believe in Nick Foles and their offense. Plain and simple. Granted, the running game has been fantastic.
Yes, Gurley is playing so well, and St. Louis's defense is playing really well. But
we got to give them some credit. They've been running the ball fantastically well. I get it, it makes sense, but at the end of the day,
I pointed out the one bad thing they're doing, and they're doing a lot of really good things. I don't mean to take that away from St. Louis. And Jeff Fisher's a great coach.
Oh, absolutely, and we see what Tennessee's out without him.
Yeah. So, how many years later?
It is what it is.
The AFC East has a big battle. Miami going to Buffalo. I was kind of in the air because E.J. Manuel, I'm pretty sure he's still their starter, right?
He should be, yes.
So it's kind of like, I'm going to go with Miami because they came off of a bad game. They came off of a letdown game, and they were playing a lot better before that. With that said, Buffalo has the talent. It's in Buffalo.
I'm going with Buffalo. I don't think they're going to blow out Miami like they did in their first matchup this year. I mean, at what point are we saying, all right, either they're going to get together or not? So right now, this is pretty much my last hurrah with them. Either they're going to do it or no.
Buffalo's defense isn't playing as well as everybody expected them to, and that's frustrating me. And like we said before the year, the difference between these 2 teams, and as we say about a lot of things, or at least as you say I talk about a lot of things, the quarterback play is the biggest difference to me. I just think Tannehill's going to get it done over E.J. Manuel right now.
Understood.
We talked about Green Bay and Carolina, just to references quick.
I'm going Carolina.
I'm going to pick Carolina as well. We talked about the defense and we talked about Cam Newton. It's nothing against Aaron Rodgers. It's just it looks like he's out there by himself right now, and it's frustrating. It's hard to pick them after last week. Tennessee going to New Orleans. We talked about Tennessee firing Hhisenhunt. We talked about the issues that we both feel Tennessee has, even going higher up in their management. Who you got? Breeze off of 7 touchdowns.
Which is unbelievable. Their defense is also trash, but I mean, it is what it is. They're also 500, and they're kind of rolling a little bit just off of Drew Brees and his momentum. And in saying that, I'm going to continue to go with that. I think they're going to go over 500 against a Tennessee team that is just...
They're a mess
floating.
right now, unfortunately. It's more their defense than anything. Mettenberg played well last week. If he's their starter, which Mariota's actually questionable, they say he might play. It's going to be with a new coach.
Regardless.
It's scary. It's frustrating. The way New Orleans has played as of the last couple of weeks and the last week in general on offense, I don't see Tennessee being able to shut them down.
No.
I'm going with Breeze at home. Oakland in the 1 o'clock time slot, flying cross country against Pittsburgh. Last week, Pittsburgh lost a heartbreaker. Who are you taking?
Oh, Pittsburgh all day.
I'm
This isn't
taking
even a question for me.
See, it is a question for me because...
Of course it is. You
Oakland.
love Oakland. I get it.
I just think they're better than they were last year. But
they're not good enough to
Pittsburgh's defense showed me a lot last week. I talked about it. Outside of that New England game, I really like Pittsburgh's defense. I think Big Ben's going to play a little better. Oakland's defense kind of gives up some weird points, and I think D'Angelo Williams gets it going. It's the 1 o'clock time slot. I talk about that. I'm taking Pittsburgh. The Giants going to Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston last week, getting it done in overtime. He had a really nice game. You can't deny that. He looked like he was carrying that team. I think he's going to be something for years to come. He has Cam Newton type of talent off the field,
Right, yeah.
And that's been the question. Because on the field, he comes off the screen really as somebody. He's so football smart, and it's so fun to watch him play. And I was talking about that when he was at Florida State a couple years ago. I've always been a big football player, Jameis Winston fan. If he can keep it together, and I think he's going to be something special for years to come. He's going to be one of those rare but like Cam Newton quarterbacks that you don't expect that kind of play to get it done. But as of right now, he is. Who you taking though? The Giants giving up how many touchdowns last week?
Speaking of quarterbacks that you like to slurp up, I am going with Jameis. I'm going with Tampa Bay just because of the fact that New York, I said weeks ago that they had an opportunity to overtake the division, and they did capitalize on that. And then you go against the New Orleans team, and you look even worse than what you have all year. I can't believe the fact that you're going to go into Tampa Bay against Jameis Winston that looked very impressive last week, as you said. So I'm going Tampa Bay.
Over the last 2 or 3 years, I haven't been the biggest Tom Coughlin fan. I think that they need to move on past him. These are kind of games that you want your team to respond and get back to, especially against a really bad defense. And the way your offense played last week, you threw 6 touchdown passes with Eli Manning, which is...
That's embarrassing.
It's impressive.
To lose to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's impressive that he did that. I'm picking Tampa Bay, but I'm scared of how bad Tampa's defense is and how good the Giants' offense was last week. I don't think the Giants' offense is going to be able to put those kind of numbers up back-to-back weeks. Who knows, though? Tampa's defense, I mean, if you're going to, you want to play Tampa's defense. I'm with you, though. The way Jameis got it done last week, the way Jameis has looked overall throughout the year makes me think that he can get it done against the Giants' defense, because the Giants' defense is a complete wreck. They were pointing at each other. They didn't know who to cover. And honestly, Jameis has thrown the ball pretty well lately. His wide receivers are coming about, so we'll see how that goes. They're getting the run game involved as well. Talking about Atlanta, they're playing San Francisco, who just benched Kaepernick. We talk about that. Who you taking?
Atlanta, I've been saying lately that I don't understand them. I don't know where they're going right now, but against a dysfunctional 49ers team, I have no choice but to go with Atlanta.
I feel like they have to win this game.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, it's Atlanta.
I'm picking Atlanta as well for that reason. I feel like they have to win this game. Carolina is now pulling away, like you said, with the curious play that Atlanta has had. I'm going to take Atlanta just because I feel like it's a desperate game. Their defense actually didn't play horrible against Jameis last week, which we were just talking about. But at the same time, they gave up points that you thought they could have stopped. They're more of a scheme than they are talent. I think eventually they're going to get that talent in there, and they're going to be really good. They're going to be something to beat, but their offense kind of stalling out last couple of weeks.
There's something off of them right now. I don't necessarily understand what it is, but they need to get it together. And if you're going to play a 49ers team, like I said, you have to get this win. So I'm going with that.
We talked about Peyton going back to Indianapolis, playing Andrew Luck. Who are you taking in this one?
Denver all day.
I'm going to take Denver as well, just because of the way they're rolling. It's hard to pick. We said about Green Bay, it's hard to pick Indianapolis, the way they've been playing as of late.
Definitely.
We talked about Philly, Dallas. EAGLES Eagles.
I can spell Dallas too, and it's the same song, bro. It's the same lullaby. DALLAS. It's the same dumb shit. I'm going Dallas.
Chicago going to San Diego. San Diego just lost Keenan Allen.
Tell me you're going against San Diego.
You know how I feel about Phillip Rivers. You know, their defense.
I will walk off this set if you're telling me you don't want Chicago.
Their defense is actually the reason I'm going against them. I think that Phillip Rivers has been playing a little better than expected as of late, but they're just not getting it done. And losing Keenan Allen is a much bigger deal. Listen, Weddle walked off the field. They're just not healthy around Phillip Rivers. It's not going to be his fault that they lose this game. I'm going to go with Chicago because I like the way that Cutler has played. Listen, he's keeping them in games. They're not talented around him right now. Alshon Jeffries is, but they just lost Forte. That's the only thing I would say. You know, both teams are injured. It's going to be a pretty hard game to watch on Monday night. It's not like San Diego has put up something that you can really like. They're 2-5, man. They're 2-5. They're no better. They're no better.
You have such a disdain for Phillip Rivers.
I'm not a big Cutler fan either. It's not. I'm flipping a coin here.
Picking Jay
Look at San Diego's defense.
You're picking Jay Cutler over Phillip Rivers.
What has San Diego's defense done?
I can't take you seriously.
Outside of really holding Baltimore, whose offense hasn't been playing all that well, and then Flacco taking him down the field and doing what Joe Flacco does.
Yeah,
Flacco, right? Mr. He ain't elite.
Mr. Money Flacco, right?
I'm taking Chicago.
I'm going San Diego. It doesn't make any sense to me. Your hate for him is unreal because you will never pick San Diego regardless of who they're playing against.
Well, I've won 3 times and they've lost 5. So this is the portion of JD Sports where we talk about the I'm Just Saying. Last week I went first, so you want to take your I'm Just Saying away first this week?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah.
So you know what? This week I'm just saying it kind of ties into what I was talking about last week with us coming at players that have a certain edge or fire with them. So this week, it's going back to the Cowboys. I just have to go. I have to do this, but when you listen to what I'm about to say, you're going to understand. So this week, Lockette went down. My man took a big blow. He was down. He was hurt. He was down for I don't know how long. It looked like he was paralyzed. Honestly, it was a very scary moment. He was down. So in the midst of all this, as this just transpired, we see the camera go to Dez Bryant, and we see him mouthing off to Irving on the Seahawks. It also looks like he's communicating with the ref.
Yeah, there's a ref in between them.
Right, so it's kind of hard to tell who he was talking about. So my I'm just saying this week is that yet again we're at a situation where we are looking for a reason to make a player like a Dez Bryant into a bad guy, which he isn't. Like I said before, he doesn't have any issues with Dallas. He hasn't had an issue in Dallas since he's gotten there.
Yep.
Point blank, period. So this week we see him mouthing off against Irving and the official, and I'm gonna be as polite as possible. Then we get these mediocre media outlets that want to come out with memes or vines saying that Dez Bryant is mocking the fact that Lockette goes down.
Well, didn't they say he said that's what you get? He didn't say that. They're saying that he didn't say that's what he get. They said that's what you get. He was clearly looking at somebody other than the person on the ground. So even if he did say anything by the measure of that's what you get, it might have been something about the ref saying something back to Irving.
And you know what?
He wasn't saying that's what you get, pointing at the man on the ground.
Here's my problem with it. Because number one, I watched the game in real time, and I knew immediately when they showed Dez mouthing this off.
I didn't even think of it because I was under the process. My mind processed that he wasn't yelling at the man on the ground.
He wasn't. Because it was such a quick thing, and Lockette just went down. I don't even know if Dez knew that he was down.
He pointed at the direction of Irving and the ref in the picture.
Exactly.
He points at them.
Exactly. Dez was referring to the play that just transpired minus Lockette. He didn't even know that my man was on the on the ground. And obviously,
if there was a person over here, I wouldn't be saying you deserve that, Dwight.
Exactly. And we got to a point where even Irving had to come out like a day or so later and tweet in Dez's defense and say, no, Dez wasn't mocking Irving. Lockette just went on the ground. And what really irritates me is that we look for a reason to make a guy like a Dez Bryant that has an edge or an attitude. We try to make him look like he's the bad guy, but he's not. He's not the bad guy. And you know what's crazy is that less than 5 minutes later, you see Dez on his knee looking at Lockette in complete awe and upset. And then you have him hours later going on his Twitter saying, paraphrasing that this is ridiculous and you guys need to get your facts straight. I'm just saying that the media, you need to get your facts right. I don't care if you're a big media outlet or these little websites to make stupid vines on the internet. Get your information correct and stop brainwashing these people into thinking that a guy like a Dez Bryant is a bad person, because all I saw in the comments then was that Dez is horrible for the league and blah, 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 this and that, and this is your leader on the Cowboys. No, you don't even know the context of it. You did see it live. You did see the fact that he was talking to Irving or the referee. He didn't see my man on the ground. Clearly, he's not going to say that against Lockette.
His reaction after the game, in the post game,
it said it all.
To me, in the locker room was enough for me. And I started reading the tweets, like you said. I started reading the tweets of people saying he was saying that, and I was like, I don't think he was saying that. And I can't read lips. So I'm not going to be the sit here and say that I'm an amateur when it comes to that. So So what I mean, if they had somebody tell that website that that's what he said and it was about Lockett, then go right ahead and publish it. But I'm with you. I'm not really sure if they did that. So, until I see some more proof or until I see some more video, I know it's hard. It's not like, there is anything else on him. We just have to take his word, I guess. But I believe Dez. I'm with you. And I think it's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So, again, I'm just saying the media needs to stop trying to portray these guys that aren't bad guys. They need to stop trying to portray these guys as bad guys when they're not. Stop looking for a story. Stop looking for a reason. Stop poking. What did Chris Rock say? You keep messing with a tiger, eventually the tiger's going to go tiger. Stop poking Dez trying to get a reaction out of him. Because you know what? You got the reaction, and he freaked out in this post-interview. He got defensive, upset, as he should, because you're questioning his character, and that's not him as a man. I'm just saying, media, get it together.
Well, I love that. I'm just saying. I completely agree with you. My I'm just saying this week happens to do with player safety. We're talking NFL, and you can even expand it to, and I know people are talking about taking the kicks out and everything. I'm not whole on, let's go with that extreme. It cuts jobs. Guys like Steve Smith, and I know it's so rare, but guys like Steve Smith came in the league as special team specialists. We would never have Steve Smith if there was no special teams. No. So I'm not sitting here saying let's cut that. I don't know how to make that part of the game safer. And what happened to Lockett is so hard. And if the only way to do it, and the NFL's preaching safety, and the only way to make the kickoffs and all that safer then is taking them out, then unfortunately that's what you have to do. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say I want this game to be safe and then it be I understand that, and I'm not
it's tough.
I want to take this a step further.
Okay.
You own an NFL team. Okay, which means that you own the NFL stadium, or at least you're renting the stadium. Okay, you put how many millions of dollars into the players on the field, right?
Right.
You have a stadium where players can literally 2 steps out of bounds tear an ACL.
Reggie Bush.
But we're sitting here talking about player safety. You're not even protecting your own investment. No. You're not protecting your own players. And the NFL isn't even stepping up and saying, you need to stop with the concrete. It's not that hard. It's really simple. When the stadium was made, the fact that nobody was like, oh my gosh, look, there's concrete about 5 steps out of bounds. These guys run at almost 20 miles an hour, some over 20 miles an hour at a time. Right. And he's not going to stop. He's not going to be able to stop from here to the camera. And that's basically where the concrete is in some of these places. Yeah. And metal cleats on concrete when you're running that fast is very bad for your legs. It's proven over time. People have lost. And like you said, Reggie Bush, and that's why I bring this up. How the fact that the Rams over the last, I think, 7 years have had 5 players get injured. You only play 8 games a year there. You didn't make the playoffs any of those times. So you only played 8 games a year there. And you're telling me that 5 players over the last 7 years have gotten hurt because of that exact thing? And yet there's other stadiums that still have that. Yet we're talking player safety, so we want to get concussions. And the fact that the owners, as I brought up to begin the whole thing, because I have a problem with the NFL not forcing these owners or forcing these buildings to be a little safer for the NFL players in that regard. I have an issue thinking myself, as an owner of another team, why am I not making it mandatory? Because I got to go play in your stadium, and I got to go watch my player now. Reggie Bush is not owned by the Rams, but yet the Rams stadium, and that's just one more reason why I think the Rams are going to be gone, because these things are happening. They're not selling out their stadium. Their stadium's not safe. It's getting run down. It's old, and they don't want to make the improvements. It's the writing's on the wall. They don't want to be there anymore, and the city's not backing them up as much as they need to. They're going to go to LA. It's going to be a perfect brand new stadium. But guess what? If it's by the guy who built if it's still by the same owner and he built the Rams stadium, then there's probably going to be concrete there, and everyone's going to be getting hurt. So what does it matter? It makes me so. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, fix yourself. Like, fix yourself NFL, fix yourself owners,
Right, yep.
fix yourself. Like, it's not hard. And if you have to get the kicks out of it, like I said, I don't agree with that. But if we have to talk player safety and they can't come up with a solution and no one can come to them, they don't need to come to me. They need to come to them with a better solution. And if they can't, until they do that, and they don't, I just.
To me, I mean, it's not. I understand that St. Louis has this problem. I don't think that they're the only.
It's not just St. Louis. No.
It's not.
I pointed that out because they have the most.
Right, absolutely. They've had the biggest issues there. They've had the most issues there.
Player safety.
My thing is that I feel like the NFL can't have it both ways. You can't try to protect player safety one way and then completely ignore player safety another way. Either regulate it or
figure it out.
Exactly, figure it out. We talked about it earlier. Put a welcome mat there. Put some type of resistance there so that my man can stop. There's no reason why there should be concrete there so that a player can get hurt. It makes no sense.
I honestly think players would rather trip over a mat that went over into the other turf and fall into the concrete wall, the padded concrete wall, than do what they're doing. Because you fall on the padded concrete wall, you're not going to hopefully get a concussion. That would be the scariest part of it. And it's not any better than that. But heck, I mean, maybe we make the stadiums bigger. I don't know. I'm not getting paid to figure that out. You need to figure out how to make it safer for these players. It's not hard.
There's ways to do it. You can put a mat up for them to run into, or you can put some type of turf, grass, anything
to slow them down. Let them slow down.
Absolutely, that's all you need to do. It's such an easy fix, but they're not doing it. I'm with you. They need to get it together because you can't have it both ways. You can't talk about player safety one way and ignore it another way. It makes no sense.
Ignore it.
It's unacceptable when we got a man like Reggie Bush. It doesn't matter if he was a starter or not. Regardless of who it is, you can't have a player go down like that. It's unacceptable.
It's so ironic because I think all my Notre Dame fans would laugh because they know how much I don't like Reggie Bush, but I hate it's so unfortunate. He was having a good season too, and he was trying to revive his career, and here it is, boom, he's done, and they need
no reason,
and
contact.
They need running backs. He wasn't even in the field to play. He didn't even get hurt. He didn't even get hurt playing football. He got hurt trying to get back onto the football field. It's frustrating. You need to fix it. The NFL needs to fix it.
You can't have it both ways.
No.
You're just saying.
That was JD Sports. I'm Jarrett Hood. That's Dwight Garfield. The Twitter is @_JD Sports. Everything else is in the link below on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook. Like I said, find us on Twitter. Thank you for watching.
Stay tuned. The best is yet to come. Peace.